Right?
Hobscheid, yeah.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Entrepreneurial Live Interviews with Connie Fuchsa. I do the Entrepreneurial Interview series because I want to share with you guys some amazing people that just saw some type of a vision or saw a need in our world, either by an item or an action, that they decided to try to take action and see what would happen to try to help the rest of the world be either a better place or have a more functioning thing that seemed to be missing. You know, all of us have some special gift, and it isn't always obvious to the rest of the world what that gift is, but we're all very different and all very unique. And so what I'm trying to do with this is share with you guys some really unique people that have just like you and I took an opportunity and made it into something, and they went through struggles and they went through successes, and I'm loving sharing their journeys. So recently I was introduced to this incredible lady who is just very powerful, has her hands in all different types of places, primarily to help other entrepreneurs. And so I'm so excited to share this story with you. Kimberly, thank you so much for being with us today.
Oh, Connie, thanks so much for having me. What a great group you have. This is really a treat.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, I'm really excited to have you guys. Kimberly Hobscheid, she is the owner and developer of Entrepreneurial Rocket Fuel. And so Kimberly, tell us a little bit about you. Tell us who you are, how you got to where you are now, and exactly what you're doing.
Great question. Thank you for asking. So, Connie, probably very much like many of your viewers, I did not start as an entrepreneur. I am a six-time entrepreneur, but it wasn't always that way. In fact, I did what many of your listeners may have done, and graduated from college and went right into corporate because that's what they told me to do. You know, get a good corporate job and health insurance and all that stuff, right? And so I did, and I actually had a really good run. I was in corporate for about 17 years. About 15 of them were good, and the last two, not so much, right? And I had done what they told me to do. I went in at the ground level, and I got promoted, I got raises, I got increased responsibilities, I got more territory, and I grew from entry level all the way up to executive director level. And then sort of looked around and realized that I had climbed a ladder that I didn't really even want to be on. Like, I was at the the top of my career, but I'd climbed right into what many of your listeners may know as golden handcuffs, right? It's that thing where you're making enough money so that it doesn't make any sense to leave, but at the same time you don't love what you're doing, so you kind of have to stay there, right? And so I actually resigned at 15 years, and they pulled me back in, like they say with The Godfather, right? And it was good, because when you leave and you put in your resignation, then you're like, oh, that feels good. And then you're like, wait, I'm scared. And they come back and say, please stay with us. And it's really hard to say no at that point, right? And so I stayed for another 2 years, but it wasn't a great 2 years for me. It was, struggle back and forth. I knew I didn't belong there. And so at the very end, I had trained my replacement. We left on very good terms. And then I was able to sort of separate and go full-time entrepreneur. Now, fortunately for me, I'd actually had some small businesses on the side, entrepreneurship on the side. So I knew what it was all about. My family did entrepreneurship, and I was like, awesome. Now I'm free. I get to live this freedom lifestyle of freedom of location, freedom of finances, freedom of, what I want to do and who I want to be. This is fantastic, right? So I was like, now what should I do? Now that I want to create this 7-figure business, what should I do? And my friends and family, meaning well, they all said, well, Kimberly, you were so good at what you did in corporate. Why don't you just do that? Which a lot of people do. They take their zone of genius and what they're really good at, and they go build a business around it for themselves. And I was like, that sounds great. Sounds easy. I already know how to do this. So I did. I went out and I built a business around what I already knew how to do. And about 18 months later, I looked back and I created a business that had generated over $1 million in revenue. And all of a sudden I had employees and, all kinds of things. And I looked back and I was like, wow, I just built my very own jail cell. Like, I had created a business around something I did not want to do anymore just because I was good at it. And I was like, wow, that was like a Mack truck hitting me in the face. Like, I was like a cat with tinfoil on her paws. I did not want to go in anymore. I didn't want to do it. And I hit this, what Brene Brown, do you know Brene Brown? She's a
Of
TEDx.
course.
Okay. So she says, I had a spiritual awakening / breakdown. And that is exactly what I had. Like I had this spiritual awakening, like,
Mhm.
I don't want to do it. And I know I want to do something else. And at the same time, it's like, holy crap, I am now in charge of other people's paychecks. I have clients that are counting on me. I have invoices, contracts. I have employees. I have responsibilities to these other people and entities that I don't even know what to do with, right? So I had great employees that I loved very much who were very competent. And I said, you know what? I'm turning this over to you. We're not bringing in any new business. I got to figure out what I'm going to do. And I let them know that I was not going to continue this business as is, and I was just going to run it out, kind of thing. In fact, I positioned it for sale, and I couldn't get the sales price I wanted, so I was hitting walls everywhere. So I went out onto a mountaintop to find the answers, and lo and behold, they weren't up there. They were not on that mountaintop. And so I came back down, and I'm not just an entrepreneur, I'm also a mom. And when I came back down, my 15-and-a-half-year-old met me at the door and said, Mom, I have a problem. And I was like, yes, somebody else's problem to focus on other than my own, right? Because we do that as moms. Like, give me anything else to solve and I'll do it, right? So I was like, what's your problem, sweetheart? What can we do? And he said, I'm entering the summer and I'm going to be 15-and-a-half all summer long. And at 15-and-a-half, I'm too young to get a summer job, because in the States, you have to be 16 to be like real W-2 income. And I'm too old to go back to summer camp because I'm 15-and-a-half. And of course, that's boring and stupid now. Right? And also he goes, and I'm taller than
a 15-year-old.
Right? And he goes, and I'm taller than all the camp counselors, which he was. He's a tall kid, right? And I'm like, yeah, that's true. And I said, but you're never too young or too old to be an entrepreneur. So why don't we create a business for you around what you think is fun and around what you love? And he was like, can we do that? And I said, yeah. And so we set about doing that. I went to Google and typed in all the things he was great at and he loved doing. And he was good on stage. He loved kids. He loved reading. He loved all kinds of different things. So we put all that in, and out came, why don't you be an audiobook narrator? And he was sitting beside me and he's like, can I do that? And I'm like, sure, why not? Let's do that, right? And so we set about creating this business to do audiobook narration. And sure enough, it went gangbusters because we loved it. Like, it was super fun. We were doing it after dinner, like between meal, like we were doing it every time. Like we were like, oh my gosh, let's do this. Oh, let's do that instead. It was like all of that energy and fun and excitement that's supposed to be about entrepreneurship kind of floated up inside us, and it perpetuated the magnificence of it. And then with all the fun, it sort of carried us forward. And so I resolved then and there, like, I would never do another business just because I was good at it. I would only do it if it was going to be fun. And so that was the lesson I learned from my 15-and-a-half-year-old. And from that point forward, I thought, I will never do another business unless it's fun. And so that's how I live my entrepreneurial life now. And it's been very successful, very fun. I do what I want when I want. And it's not that I don't work a lot. I work a ton. If you ask other people, they'll be like, she's working all the time. But I'm really on stage a lot. I have fun. I love what I do. I love helping entrepreneurs. And it's just been a total joy.
Wow, what an amazing story. That story about your 15-year-old, I hadn't heard that before. That is really fun. And boy, does it really put in perspective that it doesn't, as I started this series out and we started talking this interview, it really isn't this magical thing that comes out of the sky. You really are just, gosh, you feel that you need to do something. Let's figure out what you are having a good time at, and let's put our focus into that, and look how fun it can be. That's really cool. So I really enjoy this. So that your story is just, so before I jump into questions, do me a favor, tell me a little bit about what it is that your magic is now. What exactly do you do?
So I identify as a joint venture master connector. That's how I show up in the world. I connect entrepreneurs with the people, the stages, and the opportunities they need in order to get seen and heard in a much bigger way. Globally, internationally, I absolutely love being able to take entrepreneurs and open the possibilities for them, that it's not just, well, I get all of my business from referral. Because if you get all of your business from referral, I believe that you're just an entrepreneur hiding behind a door, right? And you're not being seen and heard by the world. And the truth is, if you're not being seen, you're being overlooked. And if you're not being heard, your message is not getting out there. And as entrepreneurs, we're here to make a contribution to the world. And if you're not making that contribution before you go, then you're dying with the music inside you. It's almost like a selfish act to say, well, I don't want to get big, right? And what if there are people out there who really needed what you have, and you just were playing small? So, and it doesn't have to feel scary. It can just be like, nope, I'm in my house with the door closed, but yet I'm on Zoom and I'm out in a bigger way, right? It doesn't have to feel super scary, and it can be done very, very easily within your capabilities, and your zone of genius can get out there in the way that it is meant to get out.
That is fantastic. That is, I just love you. You touch on so many things that I talk about regularly, your zone of genius and sharing your information and not being afraid to let the world see, because we all have this magic piece that we need to share, because it's not fair to everyone else if you're not talking about it. And I love that's what your business is built on, is getting people to share that magic message. That's fantastic. Kimberly, tell us about some of the things that you do to connect people with other people in situations. How do you do the joint venturing master connector? How do you actually find people and you connect people?
Yeah, well, it's a mindset shift, right? You have to shift from sitting down with somebody and thinking, will they buy my stuff, and do I need to buy their stuff? It's not at all about that, right? Like it's just a total mindset shift about, all right, I'm here to show up in the world as who I am. And it's not, I know that I'm here to make an impact or a contribution to the world. And that can be with you, through you, as a part of you, beside you, whatever that is. But it's not, I'm here to sell Connie something and Connie's here to sell me something. It's about how can we elevate each other. And primarily the real rule of joint venturing is relationship building. And it's a game of I will go first. I will go first, right? So as I reach out and I meet people, the first thing I'm looking at is, how can I serve them? What can I do? And that does not mean like, what are you selling? And maybe I can sell that to my people. That's not it either. That may end up being like 1 out of 50 things that happen right away. But there'll probably be some other stuff first. Like, okay, tell me about what your challenges are. Are you trying to get seen and heard in a bigger way? Would you like to get on stages? Would you like to get introduced to individual people? Are you looking for opportunities to be able to like start your own podcast? Are you looking to write a book? What are you trying to do? What would you like to do next in your journey as an entrepreneur that meets what your needs are? And I don't sell books, right? Like I don't have like how to do a book, right? But I know a lot of people who do that. And I know a lot of people who do it in different ways. So if you come to me and you're like, I want to write the next great American novel, I actually have somebody who can help you do that. And then I actually have somebody on the opposite end of that spectrum who will say to you, that great American novel you want to write, we're not going to write that first. We're going to write the book that makes you a bestseller in 60 days right now with minimum work and maximum credibility. In 60 days. And whichever one you are after, I can introduce you to that person, right? Or you could be somewhere in between and you could be like, I already have a book, I just need it to be bestseller. I have somebody to introduce you to that can help you with that as well. So it's a matter of serving the person in where they are to their next, what they want to do next. And none of those things are let me sell you my stuff. It's not just about how can I help you? And then naturally from that, it is, oh my gosh, Kimberly introduced me to some amazing people. How can I help her, right? And for me, the answer is, well, I'm looking for stages. I'm looking for people. I'm like entrepreneurs. I'm looking for opportunities. What's your zone of genius? How can, do you affiliate market? What do you do? And then we can sort of create magic from there. So not everybody wants to do what I do, but when you do, it's a lot of fun.
So I want to go back a little bit because I love hearing about your journey and your the things that you do, because I definitely want to touch on that and helping other people. And it's not about sales, but I want to go back a little bit because I think some of the things that you started on talking about and touching on, people are in those spots, they're in those zones right now. And so this is really helpful. So when you're talking about being in that corporate world, I mean, so many people can relate to that because we're all told to go to college. Geez, kids are thinking about college in 8th grade. So go to college, get out, go in the corporate world, be a doctor, be a lawyer, whatever. Those things are those rules that our society has. But let's talk about your corporate world for a minute, because obviously you liked it. You were there for quite a while, and you talk about those golden handcuffs. That so many people, I think, are struggling with that because you walked away from it and said, okay, let me do this. But so many people are toying with what they might want to do. And they're thinking, how do I walk away from the salary or the benefits or the health insurance? I mean, for real, right now in the world, as an entrepreneur, trying to figure out health insurance is a constant struggle. So talk about that mindset that you went through, going through that change, because that's a big deal to a lot of people. They may have the next greatest idea, but they just can't seem to get out of their own way to get out of that government job, corporate job, whatever that happens to be, that's keeping them jailed up.
Well, I think that's a really good question. And if I had the magic sauce to be able to sprinkle over everybody, I would say it's better on the outside, right? Once you get out, it's not always easy, but it's better, right? If you feel like you are not exercising your passion and you're not having joy where you are, then you have 3 options. 1, stick it out, right? And create your joy elsewhere, outside of your job, right? Mm-hmm. So you're like, I'm making money so that I can go do these things, right? That's number 1. And it's probably the most painful. It's the people with 2 weeks of vacation that are like, yes, I'm finally out of the hell, but I'm paying my mortgage and I'm super, I'm feeding my family and I'm doing what I need to do. And this is my prize. That's probably the most painful. Number 2, you're probably going to be surprised at. It is actually to create happiness where you are now, right? To look at where you are now and say, I don't enjoy what I'm doing 100%, but what would make this better by 10%, by 15%, by 20%? And for me, it was actually, the 15 years, there were many times where it was good. And then there were times where I'm like, I'm not super happy here, but I could be happy if I could do this in my job. And you go to your boss and your corporate and you say, you know what, I really want to do this piece. And corporate loves that. They love when you come to them and you say, I know I'm doing sales, but what I really like to do is some training on how to do, like what my secret sauce is. And can I spend some of my time training the other salespeople about that? Or what I really want to do is find out a little bit more about how the compensation plan works, because I really have some ideas and opinions about that, and see if you can ignite your happiness within what you've already got, right? So try to create 10%, 20%, 30% more joy in what you're doing now. And that actually sustained me for the 15 years, right? And then it got to the point where it just wasn't the ladder I was supposed to be on. And at that point, I really wanted to move elsewhere. But fortunately, I'd already tried some side businesses and been successful with them. So I knew what I was getting into. Now, I'm not saying you have to build a business on the side, but I would suggest that you get your feet wet before you resign, right? Because that whole phrase, don't quit your day job, can be very painful if you have a spouse that's not supportive, or a family and parents that want, they take it out of you when you go and you're like, yes, I'm free. And then they come back and they're like, how's it going, sweetheart? Are you okay? Or don't you want to get your job back? It's so painful to hear that from the loved ones, that I encourage you to get your feet wet first and at least be around entrepreneurship and be around somebody who who's been somewhat successful and had some failures, those overnight successes, and you're like, I want to do that. It can be very misleading, right? Because it's not always greener pastures. So be careful with that. And, but figure out, like inside, like then under your hat, figure out what's in here that really makes you happy, and try to do more of that as much as possible. That's my suggestion.
So that's a great segue to the next thing I wanted to ask you about, because, there's a lot of talk in the world of when somebody wants to start a business or wants to get out of the corporate or whatever that happens to be. And people always say, find your passion, and that's such a cliche in some ways, because it's easy to say that and then say, oh, well, I love to play softball, or I love to take pictures, or I love, creating, I love cooking, or I love dog grooming, whatever those things are. But maybe that's really not going to be the thing that you need to do as a business, just because you really like to do that as a human. So talk to us a little bit about that passion, because clearly you figured this out with your son. How did you guys hone this in? I mean, that's a magical example of really looking at the big picture and putting some pieces together. I love that story.
Yeah, well, your passion carries you a really, really long way, but it doesn't always carry you into financial wins, because you can be very, very passionate about, glitter beating cell phone cases, right? Like you can be like, oh, I'm the best one ever, and I have all kinds of glitter, and they're so beautiful. Aren't they beautiful? And you go to sell them, and people are like, that's kind of cute. I'd pay $5 for it. Well, meanwhile, you spent $25 on supplies, right? And it doesn't work out so well, right? So financial wins might not actually be there in your zone of genius or your beauty of it, right? However, if you tweak that a smidge and say, okay, well, I'm going to actually teach a class on how to glitter bomb a cell phone case, you might be able to, sell the class to multiple people all at once, and have 1 hour a week spent on that class, and then get 40 or 50 people signed up for it, and they're all paying a certain amount, and then your per hourly rate goes way up, right? So while people may not be interested in purchasing them, they might be interested in learning how to do it, like, so they can do it their own way. So make sure that you're open to different ideas of ways where you can still do what you love, but make it into a way that monetizes. And the good news is that there's a really clean methodology for that has been given to us by corporate. And it's called market research. Market research is a way of going out and finding out what people want to buy before you create it. Now, the word before is super important. So I could say, like, I actually had a guy who came in and said, I created this program and I want to know what I did wrong. And I'm like, awesome. Well, we're in a mastermind, so we're going to put you on the hot seat and give you some suggestions. So we did our meeting, and then I said, okay, time for the hot seat. Joel, hop into the hot seat. Tell us what you got going on. And he's like, awesome. So I created this amazing program for people who need X. And I brought in like these great people to do these high-end HD videos, and everything was great. We did intros, outros, everything was beautiful. We paid for this learning management system, and it was absolutely fantastic. And I put this price tag on it that I thought was like half the price people would need to buy. Like, it's worth so much. And I only was charging half as much for like $2,000. And I put it out there and I got crickets. What did I do wrong? And I'm like, everything, but I love you. But what you did wrong was you built something for you. You built something because you knew it worked for you. And if you were going to pay for it, you would have paid $4,000 for this $2,000 thing. But you didn't ask anybody else what they wanted to buy. And the weird thing is that there's this business maxim that says you need to sell people what they want and give them what they need. And that is the magic sauce that will help people be very, very successful in market research. So first you find out what they want to buy, what they want to pay for. And then along the way, you give them what they need in order to be successful at that. So, well, if I said, hey, I'm going to give an entrepreneurship class, I could teach you everything you want to know to get a six-figure business. You want to buy an idea of how to get a six-figure business, but what you need. And so I might be able to sell you that, right? And maybe it's a $500 program. And you're like, yes, I would buy how to do a six-figure business for $500. That sounds like a good deal, right? But when I serve you, I am going to teach you how to do that. But what you need is to learn how to do market research. And I'm going to teach you everything you need about that. But if I said, hey, I'm going to teach you how to do market research, you'd be like, nah, that sounds boring. So
Nobody wants to do that.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a difference between what people want to buy and what people need in order to be successful at that. Market research was given to us by corporate because they do a lot of it, right? Before you buy an iPhone, they went out and were like, what do you hate about the last iPhone? Like, everybody loves the iPhone, right? But then, or whatever your smartphone is, I don't mean to sell iPhones, but then Apple goes out and they're like, all right, what do you love about it, and what do you really wish it had? And they're like, gosh, I wish it had a better camera. Oh, I wish it had I wish it had this. I wish I had that. I don't want to use a stylus. I want that, and they found that out. And then they went and built it, right?
Yeah.
Like, and now people are like, oh my God, I have to have that. Why? Because it's what people want. It's not what it's not the thing that they're like, actually, you're going to need a stylus, right? No, we don't. Like, we don't want a stylus. We want the thing that works with our finger, right? Because we lose styluses, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, right. So tell us a little bit about some of the things that on your journey were struggles that you would share at this point, that might be things that people would know going straight forward. Wow, never do this. In addition to the market research, because that's a great one. I love that. But obviously, you probably had some things that happened to you along the way that you say, I would never do this. Don't do this, or keep your eyes open for this, because that's going to happen to you.
Yeah, so this is really interesting. A lot of people will be very very excited to be able to do a program and figure it all out themselves. My biggest mistake when I went into entrepreneurship, and this is funny because I actually I had a cast of thousands that worked for me when I was in corporate, right? But when I was an entrepreneur, I'm like, I could do all this myself, right? Like, that is probably the biggest mistake an entrepreneur can make, is being a solopreneur. And staying there, because it keeps us small. It keeps us from being seen and heard. And that's kind of what people like. That's where we gravitate. Like, I'm going to figure it all out and be perfect before I go out there in the world, and they keep small by doing it all themselves. So if I had it to do over again, I actually did hire a virtual assistant pretty quickly, because I'd had assistants in the past, and I knew that was really secret sauce to it. But even in my smaller businesses, I was like, nah, I could still, do all of those things. I built my own website, right? I built my own website until, and it was fun until one day it wasn't. And then I still did it for a while, and it was like, wait a minute, why am I doing this? Like, I don't love it. It's not fun. It's work. Now it's breaking because I don't care about it anymore. And I need to turn it over to somebody who does, who will do it better than me. So I would suggest that, first of all, get a VA as soon as possible. If you think you might need one in the future, it's already too late. You've already needed one for about 4 months, right?
For sure.
And then once you have one, you're going to want another one, because they're so awesome. Once you get one, you're like, oh, I can do so much more. And it's so great. So hire a VA soon. And then also stop thinking in terms of, I'm the only one who can do this. Start thinking in terms of, what can I offload that I don't like doing to somebody else, so that I can get back to doing what I love? Because when you love it, you have 10 times the energy. And like I said, people will tell you that I work a lot. I don't really feel like I do, because I do this for a living. I go out, I'm smiling 90% of the time that I'm working, right? And there are some things that I still need to offload that I'm like, God, that's bogging me down, right? And that happens. We're just normal people, right? But that's the thing, is get it off your plate as early as possible. That would be my suggestion. I love it.
Great information, great advice. I think as entrepreneurs, we think, one, you don't have the money. Oh, I'm not going to spend the money to do that because I could do it myself. But you don't realize that you're wasting your time and your valuable resources of your own self by not hiring someone, because your time is so much better spent on the things that you love and that you're really good at. So
Yeah.
I really 100% agree with you. And I love that that's your piece of share. Kimberly, is there some special project, something special that you have going on that you want to share with everybody right now that we could add in the comments and share with our viewers?
Oh yeah. If you guys are interested in getting your business to the next level and getting seen and heard in a bigger way, I would love for you to come check out Entrepreneurs Rocket Fuel, which is a Facebook group. You can find it at www.entrepreneursrocketfuel.com/Facebook. And you can join the community and conversation. We are all about helping you guys get on stage, being seen and heard in a bigger way. And making sure that you have the tools that you need in order to grow your business. It's not all about getting on stage either. There's people in there that can help you with your Facebook ads. There's people in there who can help you with your social media, people who can help you with legal advice, all kinds of different community members. It's for entrepreneurs by entrepreneurs to help entrepreneurs and experts get their business to the next level.
I love it. I love it. Do you have any kind of any specials or any freebies that you wanted to share with our audience today that we could add in the comments as well?
Yeah, well, you and I talked in the green room real quick about what I wish I knew before I got started. And so we do have a little freebie. I actually did research with several of my entrepreneurial friends who had made it in the world. And I said, tell me one thing that you wish you knew back when you started. So we collected this all together. So this is a little downloadable called What I Wish I Knew. And I will give you the link to that as well. Same thing. It's entrepreneursrocketfuel.com/what I wish I knew, all lowercase. And you can grab that, and we would be happy to have you take that little downloadable, and maybe it'll give you the insight that you need in order to get started if you're not started, or in order to get to the next level if you want to do that.
You said entrepreneursrocketfuel.com.
Just
go to that and you can download it from there.
Yep, /what I wish I knew. Yeah.
Okay. I knew I was missing something there.
Yeah.
I wish I knew. Good. I'm just adding it to our comments there so everybody can get to that, and then we'll double check it. So as we wind up, you've given us so many amazing pieces of advice and information, and I truly appreciate that. I did add in the chat or in the comment, your email address. Your website is entrepreneursrocketfuel.com. So if anybody wants to find you, ask more questions, try to get more connected with you, see how they can help work with you, that's the best place to find you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Excellent. Kimberly, I can't thank you enough for your time today. Truly my pleasure meeting you. Getting to be able to share your story was amazing. And guys, I just recently joined the Entrepreneur Rocket Fuel Facebook page as well. So much good information there. So many really cool people sharing. So I definitely encourage you to do it. Kimberly, thank you so much for being my guest today. I really appreciate having you.
My pleasure. Cheers.
Absolutely. Cheers. All right, guys. So this has obviously been live on Facebook. It'll be live. It's live on YouTube, but we're also going to post a link on LinkedIn and tag Kimberly in it. So hopefully all of her viewers can see as well. And then stay tuned, because if you go to my website, ConnieFuchsa.com, you can see any previous interviews. You can watch the replay of this, or on my YouTube channel, Connie Fuchsa, and Kimberly, I'm sure, is going to be sharing it everywhere as well. So you'll be able to see the replay so we don't miss it. So thank you guys all for being part of our Entrepreneurial Live interview series, and be sure to tune in for the next interview next week. And I look forward to talking to you guys again soon. Thanks so much for all of your time. Bye-bye.